Okay. And if you can, try to stay still. Don't move toward me or
Got
side
it.
to side.
I'll keep my feet planted.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate
Great
it.
to be here.
You know, so much of the talk here in Vegas this week is about the presidential election and the Senate, and you go down to the House districts, but there's stuff going on in our own neighborhoods that needs to be paid attention to as well. I'm sure that's one of the topics you'll be talking about here in Vegas and to your constituents as well, is the need to focus on what's going on in everybody's backyard.
Well, I mean, that's true, and we definitely seen at every respective state just an explosion of anti-Semitism, particularly on our college campuses, and that's really overseen by state officials and state government. Every university council in Virginia actually is an assistant attorney general that works for my office. And so working with them and making sure that our Jewish students on our college campuses feel safe, secure, and protected, it's a challenge right now because we're seeing things on college campuses I don't think any of us thought we would see in my lifetime. And it's very, very disturbing. And so I know we've worked with Governor Youngkin on a variety of different both executive orders and initiatives at the state level to make sure we can get things done. The state officials in many ways can work a lot faster than federal, and so I know that's what we've been doing in Virginia.
Is this one of those areas where the law hasn't quite caught up to the reality on the ground? I mean, you have mass protests going through the streets of America, chanting in support of terror organizations. It's something we haven't really seen before.
I more think it's just a lack of will. And I think the rarest thing in politics is not elected officials that are nice or kind. It's politicians that don't have courage, and people in government that oftentimes don't have courage. There are already tools in the toolbox at so many of these places, and at so many of these college presidents we've seen around the country, they're terrified of their own faculty. They don't want to vote a no confidence. And so you have a group of students that in many ways are shouting chants that are colossally ignorant and hateful, but you also have them doing things that they're already on the books is illegal. And First Amendment jurisprudence has restrictions on time, place, and manner. Some of these individuals showing up in these college campuses are not students, they're trespassers, and they're intentionally there to try to intimidate other students. So you have seen, and I think a lot of these college campuses nationwide, college presidents, they actually have the tools in the toolbox. The law, to your question, is there for them. They're just not applying the law. They're just deciding. And I think that's one thing we've tried to do. We had a big meeting in Richmond with all of our campus police chiefs over the summer to kind of give them a layout of, hey, this is what the law is, this is what you could do. And I wanted to make sure they knew that we had their backs.
So in that empty space, in that lack of will, that vacuum that exists, I mean, where does an attorney general, another legal official at the state level, where do you come in? Can you be proactive, or do you need to wait for the problem to be addressed by others?
Well, listen, I know in Virginia and Governor Youngkin's attitude for several of these schools were, if you're not willing to shut down these protests that are violating time, place, and manner restrictions, that are individuals wearing masks that are actually against Virginia code, if you're not willing to get in control of this, the state police will. And that's where you need courage. And Governor Youngkin has courage. He has a steel spine. He's willing to make hard decisions. And I think that's what's needed many times. And I think around the country, I think what you've seen is college presidents that don't have the courage, and then they don't have governors that can bring them along. I mean, the idea that you would have in UCLA a college encampment that declares himself very brazenly as a Jewish-free zone, that thing should have been shut down in 24 hours, if that. I mean, host of violations. Now they're obviously being sued. Obviously, the idea that in Columbia University you'd have an academic building taken over by protesters, the lack of consequences there. These are adults. These are not 12-year-olds. You tell them what the rules are, you make sure they explicitly know, and you tell them there's going to be consequences for their decision making. I think that is what needed. When you don't have bright lines, when people don't have ideas where the boundaries are, I think you've seen time and time again they try to push up and cross those boundaries.
I always say elections have consequences, so in this upcoming election, the people that are concerned about these issues, what down ballot races should they be looking for that really affect those particular topics?
Right. I mean, everybody focused on the presidency, incredibly important. But listen, who controls the Senate is going to be seismic. Who controls the House is going to be huge. I mean, the idea that you've had open talk among some elected officials in Congress about trying to do an arms embargo on Israel, that's that is incredibly worrisome because right now the far left progressive wing of the Democratic Party has really veered to just anti-Israel rhetoric I never thought I would hear in my lifetime. And you are having Hamas, I mean, think about it. We are literally debating whether to give Israel the tools to finish this conflict. At the same time, you have 5 Americans that are still being held hostage in a Hamas dungeon. Why are we never talking about the fact that this is a terrorist organization, no different than ISIS, that has hostage 5 Americans? Where's Delta Force? Why hasn't this president moved heaven and earth to return these 5 Americans back home? And those are the type of consequences. And then we have those that are on the progressive left speaking and giving speeches where they're saying, well, we don't want to give Israel the weapons they need to finish the job. The only way that Hamas, in my opinion, will actually reach a point of releasing these hostages is when Hamas is defeated militarily. Right now, they're using them as bargaining chips because they are hoping for negotiated settlement. And any negotiated settlement that would leave Hamas still in power in Gaza simply means that we're going to have this same debate 10, 15, 20 years from now, in my opinion.
I want to stay within your realm, within the
Yeah.
legal realm. JNS has reported extensively on the use of ESG ratings, environmental, social, and governance ratings that investment companies have
Right.
used and often to penalize Israeli companies and companies doing business in Eastern Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria. What's that situation like in Virginia? Have you delved into that particular topic?
We have sent both several notices with other attorney generals to several financial institutions not to use these ESG ratings. And we have said repeatedly, you can't. And my big worry is, for example, the Biden administration tried to have a new definition of ERISA, which has since been on the books since the 1970s, saying if I'm going to trust you to invest my pension, you have to get the highest return on that investment. To suddenly say, no, you're allowed to consider social justice standards in your investment. We're seeing this movement in a host of places, and the reality is, you're actually in breach of your fiduciary duty to maximize return for your investors. If suddenly you're saying, that's not going to be our primary goal, it's going to be whatever is the social justice issue of the day. Tragically, right now, it's anti-Israel rhetoric, so it's been incredibly important. Now, the good news is the law is on our side, and so many of these entities that we've been in communication with have quietly pulled back or let us know they no longer are being part of this ESG rating system.
So just within free speech cases, as you separate that from time, place, and manner, how do you separate these penalizing ESG ratings from free trade claims? I mean, where does that line get drawn?
If you want to be a private company, privately held, you can make whatever decision you want to make. But if you are tasked with maximizing the return on investment and your fiduciary duty as a board, which is your task for your investors, and so many of these stocks, remember, are being invested by public pension accounts as well, that is your goal. Your goal is a maximizing return for your investors. If you're veering away from that, that creates a very distorted lens for both the stock market and success of these companies. Because what you're really putting at risk is your company is not constantly trying to innovate and thrive. You're getting veered off, and that's a quick way for a company to actually die and wither on the vine.
Any other areas of interest in terms of the American Jewish community there in the Commonwealth, in terms of Israel that you've been dealing with, that your staff has been dealing with, that we should know?
Well, I mean, I'm limited to what I could say, but obviously we have currently investigating American Muslims for Palestine, a charity based in Northern Virginia. That is ongoing. We are still in the process of getting through our requests, our discovery requests, and working through the court system. But our job is to be fearless and deliberate. It's what I tell everybody who works for me on an investigation. That's what we're doing right now, is our job to get to the truth.
Jason Miyares, Attorney General for Virginia, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.